Previously on A Son's Revenge. After learning the dark truth about his parents' death, Eli sets out to uncover the mysteries surrounding their work and the legacy of the nation. As he digs deeper and deeper into their work, he finds an ever-growing hole at its center. A hole that can be filled by one thing: the Cotton Journal. One problem faces him. The journal is kept in the Vault of Secrets, and he plans to steal it.
Stop them! Don't let them get away!
Legs pumping, breath coming in ragged gasps, two cloaked figures skidded their way around corners and up alleyways. Every bark sent a shiver down their spines. Slipping and stumbling, they charged on, trying to put as much ground between them and their pursuers. The ringing of the bell rattled their ears. The long shadows of approaching guards or barking dogs could be found around every corner. They were closing in, like a fist gripped around their throats, squeezing ever tighter.
Up here!
Stairs ran up the length of the alleyway. Barely scratching each step, they accelerated up the stairs and flew across the city top. The streets were illuminated with light, shifting as the guards searched for them. The city top was no safer than the streets below, with slick golden roofs threatening to throw you down to the streets below. After that, it was a long fall and a sudden stop. His foot gave way, sending him spiraling towards the edge. Flailing to grab onto anything, he felt the edge grow closer. His arm was wrenched back, swinging him along the roof face, his feet dangling off the treacherous edge.
Pull, you weak sausage!
With all his might, Eli gripped Walter's arm. Together they hauled him from the edge and back onto his feet. His breaths came sparingly, but he had no time. They needed to move. Gliding across the roofs, they flew like birds toward the wall of their nest. Leaping one last gap, they cleared the wall, crashing down into the twigs and leaves below.
We're clear.
Scrambling from the thicket, the two boys limped their way through the shadows of the university. Shuffling into a rickety shack, Walter stripped the torn and dirt-ridden cloak from his shoulders, dropping it in a heap on the floor.
Ah! We were so close!
Dust fell from the rafters of the shack as Eli slammed his fist into the doorpost.
Close to what?
I don't know.
The boiling rage and adrenaline cooled as he slumped onto a bench. A desire to have the journal in his hands, to feel the soft leather, the crisp pages, to read its words had ravaged him for the last week. He knew in his heart that it held the answers to his question. All the notes he had pored over in the last week pointed to the journal. Yet he couldn't hold it, feel it, or read it. It was buried deep below him in the vault of secrets.
We need the structural plans.
I know. I was just hoping to avoid adding more vices to this mission.
Those extra vices won't matter if you get caught.
He knew that uncovering the truth behind his parents' murder would lead him down a path filled with difficult choices. It would push him to his limit, whatever that was.
How do you suggest we get those plans?
We could use a disguise and trick our way into the records room.
They'd probably ask for a set of credentials, and unless you can get a convincing set, I don't think that will work.
Fine. Why don't we ask one of your professors?
Professor Jones wouldn't allow it, and I don't know anyone else that well.
What about your mentor? What's her name? Nathaniel Tomato Water or something like that?
It's Natalia Tomiko.
As I said, something like that.
I don't want to bring her into this. Getting her involved could end badly for both of us.
What if you said you found a clue in your parents' notes that mentioned the structural plans?
How would I go about doing that?
I don't know. A secret room in one of the buildings.
Walter was onto something. He wouldn't be lying, because he had found a clue that mentioned the journal, and it was related to his study project.
That might work.
It will, because I came up with it.
Keep telling yourself that. We should head back before anyone notices we're gone.
Agreed. So you'll get the plans, and I'll get a better idea of the guard system around the vault.
Sounds good to me. Let's go.
Creeping out from the shack, the boys split ways. Eli back to the guild house and Walter off to whatever bar he called home. Eli had not fully grown accustomed to his muscular friend's drinking habits or way of life. The bitter smell of alcohol and the grimy tinge of sweat was always hanging around him. Walter also had a strange obsession with pain. More often than not, he could be found in illegal boxing rings or behind bars charged with aggravated assault. His name had become a common one around the various watch stations around the city. It had amazed him that Walter hadn't been thrown into Cosme, a prison built high in the Volkhov Mountains to the north of the capital. Though a gruff and violent person, Walter was quite the inventor. Sketches of walnut crushes or new kinds of explosives could be found scribbled on napkins. He'd be a great inventor if he applied himself, but Walter would never do it under the school's watch. His hatred for the school was almost as strong as the smell of liquor that followed him everywhere. Entering the guild house, Eli climbed up the flight of stairs. A darting shape caught his eye. Looking out, a figure clad in black slipped back into the shadows. Shivers ran along his arms. Panic overcame him. Rushing silently up the last few steps, he barged into his room, only to find everything as it should be. Throwing back the rug that covered his floor, he pried the board from the floor, revealing a compartment packed with his parents' notes, along with the detailed box that held the key. His shoulders relaxed as relief wafted over him. It was safe. Stripping off his dirt and hole-ridden clothes, changing into a fresh set of nightclothes, Eli slipped under his covers. Sweet relief filled him as exhaustion sent him off to sleep. His aching, bruised muscles throbbed as he rolled over, catching the thin beam of light that peeked through the curtains in his eyes, inflaming his piercing headache. Blindly flopping his arm around, he grasped onto the cool jar of rosea petals he had gotten from Astrid. Popping the cork off, he placed 2 petals under his tongue and breathed as the sweet, earthy taste of the petals enveloped his mouth. Rolling out of bed, Eli stumbled his way through getting dressed. Clasping on his guild cloak, he groggily fumbled down the stairs to the lobby of the guild house. Branton was nowhere to be found, only his ever-growing stack of books hiding his desk. Trekking his way through the early morning air, he made his way into the food hall, where the bustle of rushing students resounded in his ears. Hurriedly, he grabbed his food before rushing back out the door. His dislike of the bustling food hall had grown in the last week. The noise destroyed any chance of productive thoughts or a peaceful morning. The early morning sun and the songs of the birds that populated the main plaza were much more to his liking. He sat under one of the many trees to eat his meals in peace.
Beautiful, isn't it?
The soft voice of Scarlet nearly shattered the thin wall of relief felt under the influence of the rosea petals.
Oh, hi. I didn't see you there.
That was the general idea.
I see. But yes, you are correct. The plaza is very beautiful this morning. Much better than the noisy food hall.
Yes, indeed. Have you managed to stay out of the infirmary?
I've stayed relatively clear.
Relatively. So, not entirely?
No, I've been there a few times with Walter and Astrid.
Ah, yes, the Finleys. They are quite the unusual pair of siblings.
They're not as weird as everyone seems to make them out to be.
Maybe, but Walter is still a drunk.
I can't argue with that.
Good morning, Eli.
The bright sound of Astrid's voice washed away the last hints of weariness and pain that had filled him. Sunlight glistened off her warm smile as she crossed over to them. Every step, smile, and movement projected the unending joy that Astrid often had about her, though a venomous hatred dripped from her cold blue eyes.
Morning, Astrid.
How you doing this morning?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
I'm okay. I got to deal with a drunk Walter this morning.
See? Just as I said.
Contrary to popular belief, my brother isn't always drunk.
Yeah, but see, most of the time, he is.
A fire exploded in Astrid's eyes. She had no love for any of the Defoes, least of all Scarlet. Breathing deeply, Astrid turned her back on Scarlet.
What do you have going on today?
Not much. We have general lecture and then it's more study time.
Cool. Would you be interested in maybe going to the market this afternoon? Go see the city a bit?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Great. We'll meet up at the main gate around 3.
That should work for me.
Awesome. Sounds like a plan.
Sounds more like a date to me.
Shut it, Scarlet. No one asked you.
I'm just saying what I see. But I do suggest moving it along. General lecture starts in 5 minutes.
Oh, you're right. I'll see you at 3 then.
Yep. See you then. Have a good day.
Thanks, you too.
Parting ways, Eli skipped his way down the path till he caught up with Scarlet. Together they followed the stream of students, making their way inside the lecture hall.
So, you two are close?
We're just friends. She's been helping me adjust to life here.
I see.
The final students made their way into the hall as Professor Jones took to the podium.
Good morning, class. Today we will continue our discussion on the murder of Chief Denali by his brother Amarian. Who can tell me what happened and what led up to our great chief's demise? Mr. McCain?
After nearly 100 years of peace, Chief Denali's youngest brother Amarian became jealous of Denali, who had resisted the aging of time, thanks to the star. He longed for it, and it consumed him, till he murdered his brother in cold blood, taking it for himself.
That is correct. Why did this act set off a time of war and strife in the realm?
Because Amarian was so consumed with greed and the guilt of murdering his brother that he lost his mind.
Correct. Because of this murder, a civil war broke out. 2 factions formed, those loyal to Amarian and those loyal to Denali's son Taz, who was on the path of revenge. Now some texts say that because of the mental instability of Amarian and the power he held over the star, threw the whole world into distress. Some of the largest storms we have ever seen were recorded during this era. Winters lasted for months, and harvests failed. They say that even the sun itself was dimmed. These events kicked off the dark times. Now how long did this time last? Miss Defoe?
From 432 till 495.
That is correct. The Civil War itself lasted nearly 10 years, coming to a horrific end when Taz led his forces in a fierce campaign against Amarian that ended in the siege of the Old Capital. Who can tell me what happened to the Old Capital?
It fell into the sea.
Correct. While the siege took place, Amarian fell to his lowest point of insanity. With the Blessed Star in his grasp, waves as high as mountains crashed out of the sea, swallowing half the city. The other half suffered a fierce lightning storm that demolished buildings and killed thousands. Both Taz and Amarian died that day. In fact, the very harbor that our university looks over is what remains of the Old Capital.
What happened to the star during this time?
It fell into the sea along with Amarian, later to be found by Joseph Cotton.
Do we know what he did with it?
No, but we can theorize about that later. Back on topic.
The professor had been avoiding all discussion on the topic for the last week, only going into it as far as his lectures would allow. As the lecture dragged on, Eli's mind drifted off to the heist ahead and the choices that faced him. Could he lie to Natalia, who had all but taken him under her wing, teaching him, guiding him in the ways of the guild? She had shown him how to systematically organize and document every piece of evidence that related to his parents' notes to the star, as well as their murderer, a person who plagued his nightmares. Burning hatred filled his heart. How he longed to take revenge for his parents. Deep down, he would do whatever it took to get justice, and that terrified him.
Well, that is all for today. I expect you all to keep working on your year project. Other than that, I release you.
Snapping back to reality, the realization of time swept over him. The sun, which had been low in the sky, had risen high overhead, barely creeping through the windows that filled the upper edge of the hall. Grabbing up his things, Eli made his way out into the halls of the guild hall. A choice stood before him: fake his way into getting the plans, or lie to his mentor. He hated both, but one more than the other. Marching his way down the halls, he made his way out and across the open air of the university, entering the lower levels of the Grand Hall. The Grand Hall was the center of the school and state. One wing housed the faculty and records of the school. On the other side was the entirety of the nation's government, with the council chambers, private offices, and all manner of offices filling it. Only one mattered to him: the records room. The records room took up an entire floor of the building. Besides the rotunda, where the opening of Founders Day was held, and the council chambers, it was the largest room in the entire building. Climbing the last flight of stairs, a small door placed between 2 pillars greeted him. It wasn't as large as he had expected, though what it lacked in size, it gained in grandeur. Massive murals covered the far wall, in which a tall, elegant man knelt at the top of a hill with his arms outstretched, taking in the majesty of the 4-winged eagle that was arrayed in glory. Above it, the words, "You are my talents, my messenger, my chosen. I bless you and send you forth," were inscribed. A cutout with a man sitting behind it sat below the mural. Towering shelves stretched on as far as you could see, stuffed with scrolls and books of every kind.
How may I help you?
Hi,
I'm all done, Mr. Huffman.
The blood drained from his face as the feathered cloaked figure of Natalia Tomiko exited from a door leading into the expanse of the records room. Though he had chosen to trick his way to the plans, fate chose otherwise.
Oh, Eli!
Natalia, what are you doing here? I thought you had a lab today.
I do. I just needed to pick something up.
Oh, that makes sense.
What are you here for?
Guilt flooded his mind. He should have seen this coming. He didn't have a choice now. Walter's words drifted to him.
I found a note referring to a hidden room somewhere under the campus that was connected to Joseph Cotton, and I thought maybe I could find it using the structural plans.
Oh, interesting. I hope you wrote down where you found it.
I did.
Good. Lucky for you is that I'm here then. Only senior members of a guild can access Class 2 documents.
Extremely lucky.
Mr. Huffman, would you be able to go grab the structural plans for the university?
Under what reasons?
Research. And don't worry, I'll keep an eye on them.
Very well.
Disappearing into the rows of shelves, he returned in seconds with a long leather tube sealed with the signet of the Chancellor, Wilfred Defoe.
You better keep an eye on those.
Don't worry, I will.
Grasping the plans with sweaty palms, Eli and Natalia headed back out into the halls.
I would keep those in your room. It would be very bad if they got lost.
I'll make sure they never leave my sight.
Good. I'd love to stay and chat about what you found, but I need to get going. So remember to note down everything you find, and we'll take a look at it tomorrow.
I will. Good luck with the lab.
Thank you.
Briskly running down the stairs, Natalia disappeared in a flurry of gold and black feathers. His heart pounded as the guilt burned in his chest. If they were caught, Natalia would certainly be dragged down too. The tremors of the bell vibrated through the halls as Eli climbed the winding stairways of the grand hall, marking the hour. 1 o'clock. His mind swirled as the fears and doubts whispered in his ear. What if he was wrong? What if... The silence of the rotunda mixed with the gentle crashing of the waves halted him on his march. 4 arched doors were cut out of the back wall of the rotunda, revealing the endless expanse of the ocean. Ships passed in and out of the protective spurs of the harbor. He knew this was a tipping point. His next steps would define the rest of his life. Either he lets it go, or he takes revenge for his parents. Inhaling deeply, he made his choice, and sprinted away from the arch, racing down the steps, across the plaza, through the gate, and down the winding streets of the city. His pace slowed as the crooked sign of the Dancing Crutch came into view. An empty room greeted him. Peering over the counter was Fyodor, the barkeeper, who knew the boys as regulars and had given them a private room to talk in.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon. Is Walter here?
Aye, he's in the back.
Thank you.
Passing through to the private room, he found a single table filled with scraps of paper, a few mugs, 2 platters, and the bulky form of Walter sitting scratching out one of his ludicrous ideas.
Making yourself at home, I see.
Walter raised his eyes from the sketch she had laid out before him.
That's because it is. Did you get the plans?
I did.
Good. Now let's have a look.
Not until you clear off any crumbs that are on the table.
Really?
Yes.
With their eyes locked, Walter raised his arm and swept the table clear.
Is that better?
Rolling his eyes, Eli unsnapped the tube and rolled out the sheets containing the structural plans.
I was able to get the guard schedule, so I'll know where they'll be at any time. Now all we need to do is find a way in.
We could go from the cliffside and get close to the vault from there.
That could work up until we need to go down under the rotunda. Look, the vault is sitting right in the middle of the hill, with only one heavily guarded hallway leading to it.
What about air vents?
Nothing we'd fit in. The vents are too small and plenty of guards to scare off the intruders. It looks like they have it placed in the perfect spot. The only way would be to blow a hole in the ceiling.
That would draw too much attention.
We also need a way to open the vault. There are 2 options for that. blow it open or figure out how to crack it.
Their plan would have to be as uncomplicated as possible, draw the least amount of attention, and be able to get in and out without being caught. Energy coursed through Eli as the key came to life. He braced himself for the mind-splitting crack that would destroy the world and reveal the way, but it never came. Just an idea. One simple idea. Standing to his feet, he marched across the room. Swinging the door closed, Eli locked it. Pulling the key from his neck, he slipped its slender shaft into the lock and twisted. It worked. The door swung open.
This is how we're going to get into the vault.
It unlocked the door.
Yes, which means it could unlock any door.
What could open any door, Twig?
Dread filled Eli like water fills a cup.
I asked you a question, Pipsqueak. What could open any door?
If Diego learned of their plans, they'd be ruined, and Eli was not going to let that happen. Slipping the key into his coat pocket, he turned to face the slinky form of Diego Defoe.
A key. It's what opens any door.
That's not what you said. You said it could open any door. Now tell me what it is.
It's none of your concern.
It's always my concern where you're involved. You're unblessed aggregates who cause nothing but trouble. And worst of all, you defend that demon you call a sister.
The table flipped, scattering its contents as Walter rose to his full height. Eli boiled with rage. How could someone long so much to be feared, admired, and respected, all because of his name? He broke. Diego's head rocked back. Eli's fist knocked him clear off his feet, throwing him back onto the floor. Taking in the scene before him, Eli realized how grave of a mistake he had made. Diego wasn't alone. He had brought friends. Lots of large, hulking, muscular friends who looked ready for a fight. And he just handed it to them. Diego scrambled to his feet, and it all came clear. He didn't care what Eli and Walter were doing. He just wanted to fight.
You'll pay for that, McCain!
Diego charged, slamming his shoulder into Eli's stomach, throwing him back against the table. Pressing his arm to Eli's throat, Diego raised his fist to strike. Shooting forward, Walter grasped Diego by the neck and hurled him into the arms of his goons. Gasping for air, he watched in horror as Walter rushed the 5 men blocking the door. Striking left and right, they stood no chance against Walter's unleashed rage. In seconds, all but one of the goons lay clutching broken arms or bruised ribs. The last goon hung pinned against the wall with the full weight of Walter's rage upon him. Eli's eyes snapped to the flash of silver light. Diego stood bent, awkwardly holding a pistol aimed right at Walter. Diego steadied his aim. Scrambling to his feet, his foot landed on a discarded mug, sending him slamming back to the floor. All he could do was watch helplessly as Diego squeezed the trigger. He couldn't look. The horrid smell of gun smoke filled the air.
Who the heck are you?
Eli's eyes ripped open to see the black-clad figure standing holding Diego's gun pointed at the ceiling. Fear filled Diego's eyes. Twisting Diego's arm, the pistol fell from his grip, clattering on the ground.
Who are...
A swift strike to the jaw cut his sentence short, knocking him unconscious and sending him crumbling to the floor. Releasing his grip, the goon Walter had pinned to the wall joined his compatriots on the ground.
Get up. We need to leave. The watch is not far away.
Grabbing the plans, Eli scrambled to his feet and headed for the door.
Go through the back.
Swinging over the bar, the figure disappeared in a blur as they headed out the back of the dancing crutch. Eli glanced at Walter. Shrugging his shoulders, Walter dove over the counter and fled out the back. The clamor of rushing feet and shouting could be heard outside the doors. With no other choice, he flew over the counter and barged out into the back alley.
This way.
Racing after Walter, he felt his aches and pains flare to life, threatening to drag him down. His breaths were shaky, coming with a sharp pain that shot through his neck. They raced on, turning left and right at the drop of a hat. It felt aimless, like there was no point or goal in mind to the endless twists and turns they took. Taking a sharp turn, he rushed out of the alley right into the solid wood surface of a crate, sending him toppling to the ground. The world spun all around him as he was dragged to his feet.
Are you alright?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Over here.
The black figure stood waving them over before entering one of the many warehouses that lined the road. Making their way inside, shadows enveloped them.
I'm glad you could keep up.
The lights flickered to life, glistening off the raven hair of Scarlett Defoe.
Scarlet?
Surprised?
No.
What are you doing here?
What does it look like? I'm saving your rears. The better question is, what are you doing?
Our business is our own.
Would that business be breaking into the Vault of Secrets?
No.
What vault?
Don't bother denying it. I overheard you in the groundkeeper shed.
We were only ever there at 3 in the morning, so how could you have heard us?
It's called insomnia. I'm always walking around campus at night.
Then how come I've never seen you?
Campus is quite a large place, and we live on opposite sides of it. I wouldn't be surprised if I never saw you either.
I still don't believe it.
And I don't care. Now, what are you planning?
We're not planning anything.
Then why do you have the structural plans for the school?
What plans?
The ones you're holding.
Oh dang, she caught us.
I did. So out with it. What are you two buffoons up to?
You don't have to be insulting.
I'll tell you, only if you agree not to tell anyone else.
That entirely depends on what you're going to tell me.
Just promise.
Fine. I promise not to tell anyone.
You better keep that. We're trying to break into the Vault of Secrets and steal the Cotton Journal.
An intrigued look covered Scarlet's face.
And why would you want to do that?
Because it holds the answers to whatever the heck this is.
Grasping the leather cord tied around his neck, he pulled the key from its hiding place.
And the answer to my parents' murder.
What is that?
It's a key of some kind. It's connected to my parents' work regarding the Star Relic. It's also why they're dead.
Hold on just a moment. You don't know what that is.
Besides the key, no.
Oh my, you really know nothing.
Care to fill us in?
You're not just holding a clue to your parents' work. You're holding a very part of the Star Amulet.
What does that mean?
Joseph Cotton decided to separate the relic into 4 parts. A hammer for the gift of strength of will, a ring for long life, a flower for healing, and a key for truth, deeming it too powerful for one man to hold.
Disbelief smashed into him at what he had just heard. Part of the relic that built the nation was tied around his neck, and he had no idea.
So you're telling me we're holding one of the most valuable pieces of history known to mankind?
Yes.
I wonder how much it would go for.
There is no price you can pay for such a thing.
I'm sure there is.
It all makes sense now.
Leaning against the box, he took in the weight of what she had said. If it was true, it explained everything. The reason they sent the key to him, why they were murdered, and how he could protect the nation's legacy.
So, what do you plan to do with it?
5 hours later.
What's that?
A grenade, you idiot!
Kicking away, the 2 guards unslung their rifles as the grenade exploded, shrouding the hallway in smoke.
Sound the alarm.
With 2 swift strikes, the guard fell limply to the floor. Taking the lead, Eli made his way to the massive circular door of the vault. The door curved in a bent teardrop shape of pure silver, with an opposite golden teardrop bending the other way. Lines of pure quartz stretched out from the center, encircling the now familiar symbols of a ring, hammer, flower, and key. A quartz eagle with fire surrounding it connected them all. In its chest sat the recognizable shape of a keyhole, but it was filled in.
There's a keyhole, but it's blocked.
Check to see if anything is out of place.
It's the circles.
How do you know?
Because they're all facing the wrong way.
And how are they facing the wrong way exactly?
The hammer is upside down, and so is the key. The flower and the rings have engravings that don't match up with the ones on the rest of the door.
He's right. The question is, how do we turn them?
Check to see if there's something to grab onto.
Each picking a circle, they went to work looking over every inch, running his hand over the intricate detailing of the circle. A divot of shadow caught his attention. A swirling shape was etched into the golden surface. It looked familiar. Holding up the key, realization struck. Pushing the key into the divot, it matched perfectly.
What'd you do?
I used the end of the key.
Look here.
In the middle of the flower, a single hole had opened up, matching the key. Slipping it in, he twisted it. Nothing happened.
You have to turn it the other way to match the carvings.
Twisting the other way, the flower began to rotate until it locked in place. Stepping back, they scanned the last 2 circles for any changes. There it was, another keyhole. At the base of the hammer, the ring shot out, protruding from the door. Grasping it firmly, Walter twisted it until it locked into place. All 4 circles began to spin as the eagle's wings shifted, pulling back the stone that filled the keyhole. Inserting the key, Eli took one final breath before twisting the key. The door swung in, revealing the domed room of the vault. Concentric circles of shelves filled the vault, with a single path cut straight to the center, where the red leather journal sat atop a pedestal. One step, then another. then another, until he was sprinting down the path, coming ever closer to the journal. The last row of shelves flew by as he reached out to grasp the journal.
Eli, wait!
It was too late. A brown blur flashed through the corner of his vision, smashing into him. Pain shot through his ribs as he was sent flying, crashing into the row of shelves. Light gleamed off a brown fur coat that stood firmly placed between him and the journal. Large curving horns shone brightly in the dim light. Black fur patches covered its eyes.
What the heck is that?
That, Mr. Finley, is our watchdog.
Soldiers flooded into the room surrounding Walter and Scarlet in seconds. At their head was the tall figure of General O'Neara, her stare buried deep into Eli.
I would have to say I'm surprised to find you among this raiding party, Mr. McCain. I had hoped Jason and Amy raised you better.
Slumped in pain, Eli's vision began to blur as the frail form of Professor Jones hobbled into the room, with hard lines of anger and disappointment dug deep into his face. As his vision faded to black, Eli knew in his heart he'd failed.